Center downtown on the blue line. We're going to explore this line out to Wonderland. Interesting history. Got off at State Street on the blue line. You can connect with the orange line. The blue line was once a trolley line, but was expanded and converted to a subway line in the early 20th century. The blue line is so named because it has the distinction of being the first subway line to go underneath a significant body of water. This line passes underneath Boston Harbor. That was opened, that tunnel under the harbor, in 1904. I think Boston was the first city to color code their subway systems. You have the blue line and all the stations are painted in a blue color. You have the orange line with orange color, the green line with green color, and the red line with red color. There's a train headed down into Bowdoin, downtown. Note the cars, in addition to having third rail capability, have overhead capability. That they use once they get out into East Boston near Logan Airport. I get a kick out of the tunnel construction on the blue line, and it uses one portal for the two tracks rather than an individual portal for each track. So here we have a Wonderland train coming out of that double track bore. These are 700 series cars built by Siemens. This line was turned into a rapid transit system from Trolley in 1924, and 1952 was extended to Revere Beach in Wonderland. Comes a Bowdoin-bound train where there's a loop and the train just goes completely around before heading back east again. As I mentioned, these cars were built by Siemens. Cars before that were built by Hawker Siddeley. Before that by St. Louis Car Company. And before that by Pullman Standard. They've had all kinds of subway equipment. We move to the next stop east at the Aquarium station, where the New England Aquarium is. Heading to Wonderland, and here the tracks drop down to go below the Boston Harbor in the tunnel before the next stop of Maverick. Looking east, we get a good view of the tunnel, diving down to go under the harbor. The construction of the subway tunnel as well as the station are reminiscent of stations you can find on the Upper West Side on the number 1 in New York City. Well, here comes a Wonderland bound Blue Line train of 700 series cars. That's what these Siemens cars are referred to as. You can see him dropping down as he starts to ascend underneath the harbor just to the east. Pretty steep grade. Then we'll watch him head off into the tunnel and leave Boston for East Boston. Heading under the sea. This line uses 600-volt DC third rail and overhead catenary. Oh, here we have a Bowdoin-bound Blue Line train climbing up out from underneath the harbor, leaving East Boston behind. Welcome to Boston. Sounds these make sound very much like an ACS 64, and not coincidentally, they're both built by Siemens. And similar to the Chicago CTA, there's no third rail covering. There's a Wonderland train coming down a grade into Aquarium. Passenger at the end of the platform, I think he dropped his cell phone on the track and they're having a hard time being able to get it. Needless to say, I don't want that to happen to me. You can hear those Siemens-like whoops going on those cars. There's a Bowdoin train. Maverick. Maverick. This is Maverick Square in East Boston. Pretty lively part of East Boston with restaurants and shops. I know about Mavericks. Remember that old Western show, that comedy Western, Maverick? Well, I know also about additional Mavericks. I used to have two Ford Mavericks. A 1972 Ford Maverick. I got a whopping 20 miles to the gallon. I could fill it up for $5. Then I got a 1973 8-cylinder Maverick that got about 17 miles to the gallon if I was lucky. But boy, did that thing have power. This has an extraordinarily wide platform.
The next Blue Line train to Bowdoin is now arriving.
Bowdoin, it's spelled like the college in Maine, Bowdoin College. That was the alma mater of a famous Civil War hero, Colonel Joshua Chamberlain. He was a hero in the Battle of Gettysburg's Little Round Top. Maverick was a famous location for shipbuilding. I love these plaques they have here. Well, from the west, the tracks are climbing up at them underneath the harbor.
Arrives in 9 minutes.
Beautiful day, but you wouldn't know it here. But this is the last underground stop on the Blue Line. We'll continue east to the airport station, which is most interesting on this line. They convert from third rail to catenary and vice versa. I do love the name of this station, though. My father really loved this station. Whenever he flew up here and went into downtown, he would always tell me, on the way into town, I stopped at Maverick. In fact, the 1972 Ford Maverick that I had was that color. Interesting. That voice you hear on the PA announcements is the voice of the MBTA, Frank Oglesby. He's retired now. Here we have a Bowdoin train arriving at Maverick.
Wonderland train arrives.
And this Blue Line train is leaving East Boston behind. Next stop, Aquarium in Boston. This station is a bit on a slant to accommodate the tracks diving down under the harbor. We got off at the airport and the pantograph is already up. We'll spend a little extra time here to watch some transitions. This is a station for Logan Airport in Boston. It's a shuttle bus to all the terminals. From here, Ireland is very close. You can almost reach out and touch it from here. 6 hours from Boston to Dublin. Looking east at the airport station, a third rail ends at the end of the platform, and a little ways to the west, the overhead catenary ends. A rather elegant way of describing an emergency exit. Oh, here comes a Bowden-bound train. Let's see him drop his pantographs. Got a Wonderland train due shortly, too. He doesn't waste any time making the transition. Comes another Bowden-bound train that's going to drop his pans. Whooping sounds a little bit like the old Bud Company Almond Joy cars when they started up in Philadelphia. So we switched to the Bowden-bound platform. We got an eastbound coming in for Wonderland. Watch him raise his pantographs. This line was originally planned to go to Lynn, but that never panned out. But they're still talking about extending it there. Yeah, heading west, leaving here, just a little reminder to avoid a lot of damage. Here comes a Bowden-bound train. Watch him do his thing with the pantograph. There's a Wonderland train that's going to expire on its third rail here. Comes another Bowden-bound train. We'll watch him drop his pans. That sounds rather vulgar. Pantograph mechanisms on those sound air actuated.
You can take whatever you want.
Yeah. Beats sitting home on my butt, so. I live on Long Island.
Where?
Long Island.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
That's good. All right.
All right, take care, buddy.
Yeah, take care.
You too. One of MBTA finest motormen. This is a nice, fairly wide open station. I'm going to try to hit all of them. All wires here the rest of the way. 650 volt DC. Here comes a Wonderland train. This train is a bit lighter. Guy threw 3 huge bags of tin cans off. The station's in a fairly quiet neighborhood. Absolutely gorgeous day here in Boston. It's about 72 degrees and sunny. Perfect kind of September weather. Feels more like autumn. Here comes a Bowden-bound train. Seeing those cars running with the pantographs up reminds me of the Cleveland RTA. That's all overhead. In fact, they used to have St. Louis Car Company cars running on the RTA that look very similar to the Blue Line cars that were built by the same company years ago. Here comes a Wonderland bound train. There's another one right behind them by 2 minutes. good track sound on this line. It's another Boden-bound train. One stop east at Orient Heights. This is where the Blue Line has their servicing facility and shops. Here's a shot of the old St. Louis Car Company equipment that used to run on this line. Comes a Wonderland train arriving Orient Heights. Park just west of the Orient Heights station. Here's a Boden train just left the station. We have a Boden-bound train approaching Orient Heights. View airplane bus if you have a camera with a good telephoto. You can go to nearby Constitution Beach Park and get some great landings and takeoffs from Logan Airport. As rush hour approaches, more pieces of equipment will come out of the Orient Heights yard. Tell you nostalgia buffs who like the sound of rail joints, you'll love this line. And let's check out the Orient Heights facility here.
Next stop, Suffolk Downs.
See a Spirit aircraft landing. The yard is further back down from the Y. Suffolk Downs. Is there a racetrack near here? I'm not sure. But it looks like a great place to watch airplanes landing at Logan Airport. Here comes a Boden-bound train coming down a straightaway, approaching Suffolk Downs. With the airplane traffic, it's easy to get distracted here. They're lining up, taking numbers, coming into Logan. United Airlines 737 MAX from Chicago O'Hare. Huh. Over there is a restaurant or a pub that has a a crashed Piper Cherokee in the roof. There's my friendly motorman again. None of these crash on top of the restaurant across the street. Otherwise, you're going to have an inferno.
Attention passengers. The next
The next station east at Beachmont. Sun angles are getting tricky going eastbound. Well, I decided to move east to the last stop at Wonderland due to unfavorable sun angles going east. So we'll backtrack a little bit to Beachmont. Then we would have covered the whole line except for the Bowdoin Terminal, which is kind of tight and dingy, so I didn't really want to go there. Here we're looking east into the yard here at Wonderland. Trains arriving, switch over and make a reverse move and come into the station for their trip back to Boston. Train just arrived from Boston. This Wonderland stop is very close to the Keolis Rockport-Newburyport line. And we'll hop on this Boston-bound train and go to the next stop, Revere Beach. Revere Beach, Boston bound. Revere Beach, named after a famous hero from the Revolutionary War. The very first time I rode on this blue line was in July of 1970. Back then, the Pullman Standard cars were in vogue. And here comes a Wonderland bound train at Revere Beach. It's the most interesting line. Classic photographs of Revere Beach. This is the dancing pavilion, and this is the beach itself in 1935. Those little cars make a lot of noise. They're the shortest of the subway cars on the MBTA. The orange line is in the middle, and the red line cars are the longest. Comes a boat and train at Revere Beach.
The next Blue Line train to Bowdoin is now arriving.
Thank you, Frank. Going to identify these planes as far as where they're coming from. Just look for yourself and you'll know what they are. There's Air Canada from Montreal, I know that much. Comes a Wonderland bound train. that's United from Houston. Here's Delta from Palm Beach. Well, here comes a Delta Airbus 330 arriving from Tel Aviv, Israel. Great spot this is, wow. The Blue Line does a little roller coaster profile coming in from Boston here. United Airlines 757 from LAX. Going to get one more interesting aircraft here. A Spirit Airlines Airbus 320 from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina. It's almost 5 o'clock. I think this will be the last Blue Line train I catch. We have a Wonderland bound train going up the roller coaster profile here at Beachmont. It's been an entertaining place to watch trains and planes. Say goodbye to the Blue Line at State Street.